Okay, I went way too long in that last video. The point of this is not to redo class. It's just to get some ideas out there to think about. So I'm going to do this a little bit quicker. You did all the readings on the reindeer people. You have a lot more information about this. I just want to ask a couple questions to get you thinking about some things, and then you can go do your assignment. So we could ask the question, who lives on the ice? You've already sort of seen this. The Inuit people, the Lapp people of northern Scandinavia. You saw the Sami people. There's a bunch of people that sort of live on the ice, groups of people. There's some similarities between those groups. But obviously, as we've just been talking about, if the physical geography is similar, we would expect some similarities. Not perfect similarity. It's not deterministic like that. But definitely, if the main source of food is reindeer, it's not a shock to find reindeer herding societies in all these different societies that live in this area. So what I want to talk about, though, is more the culture angle. So let me ask you this. What is our image of them? And I'm being a little broad, a little generalistic here, but I want you to just think about this. Like, when you think about, particularly before you started watching those videos, but maybe even after, like, what did you think about that life? What do you think about them? Like, and we can maybe ask this more broadly or even historically. What do the people who don't live there think about the people that do live there? And that's why I got these quotes around this. So there's a couple things I just want to just throw out there. One is that oftentimes nature there just seems unadaptable, that there's no way anybody could live in that area. And so why would the question then sort of follows from the people who don't live up there? Why would anybody live up there? To choose this almost seems to be unhuman. And this is one of the things that happens throughout history, is this different understanding about these cultures and these places. Why would anybody live there? If you live there, there must be something wrong about you, because this, how we live here, that's what it means to sort of be human. And so throughout history, this usually goes in two different directions. We can see, for example, in one direction, this sort of idea that they are subhuman, they are beast-like, they're ignorant, they don't know what's going on. So this sort of, the term that often was used in ancient Greece was barbarians, which essentially just means not Greek. And that is a very common sort of human thing to do, is to say this other is super weird, super ignorant, not really a thing worth looking at. The other direction to go is complete opposite, which is this idea of the noble savage. That essentially they're still a little ignorant, but that ignorant makes them innocent, unlike us who are mired in technology and, the hustle and bustle of life. And wouldn't it be nice to just sort of live there for a while, to be there where they're more in touch? Now, I could never do that, because now I'm so ensconced in this sort of modern world. I couldn't do that. So their ignorance, their innocence is a good thing. They're in touch with nature. These are two different ways that have been sort of that the main civilizations often treat the other civilizations. And you can understand how that very quickly gets into some bad ideas, not just sort of cultural differentiation, but even racism and stuff like that. What's their image of us? So we could ask that same question, like, what do they think about us? Do they think that we got it all together? Are they jealous of our iPads and TikTok? I mean, this is the question. And the answer is almost certainly, and I don't think you'd be that surprised to know, no, they're not jealous of us at all. They think that we're, in some ways, they think these things about us. Maybe not in that sort of same way, but there's still this idea of that isn't, the term that we often use is the capital O, other. They're the other. They're not us. And there's something wrong about them then, because we're super awesome. I'm going to skip over this next slide a little bit here. So this is the question I want to sort of throw at you. Are reindeer societies civilized? Like, okay, great. What the heck does that even mean? Do you have a definition of this? I mean, we have classes here called Western civilization. Like, what the heck does civilized even mean? I feel like most of us in a sort of postmodern world where we're multicultural, so we're all very tolerant of each other. Like, we want to say, what I do is different than what you do, and that's cool for you, and it's cool for me. And yet at the same time, we do still, maybe subconsciously, sometimes not subconsciously, we do still sort of have this idea of, are there better ways of life than others? Are there things that are better? Like that is, like, I appreciate your culture, but that element of your culture is uncivilized. It's just not cool. Stop doing it. And we do have those things. I mean, if you look at, well, we'll talk about these things later on in life. But for now, I just want you to think about that. Are there ways that we sort of do that? One of the definitions of civilization that is out there, or civilized, is to apply technology and innovation to overcome the constraints of nature. So, for example, we build houses, and we put air conditioning in those houses, and we put toilets with working water in those houses. And that to live in something other than that, like a cave that doesn't have those things, would be uncivilized. What about an igloo? Would that be uncivilized? This is part of the idea. But let me just point this out. Building an igloo out in the Arctic is applying technology to overcome the constraints of nature. So that, how exactly are we talking about this? Here's another element about this, and that is magic and shaman. I didn't have you read a lot about shaman, but is using magic or using shamanism or witch doctors or whatever, is that also overcoming nature? Are flying reindeer magic or religion? Is this civilized? Is religion civilized? Prayer, ritual, spirits, these are all used by the Sami to protect the herd. If they're using this instead of quote unquote science, then is that civilized? What, if anything, are the difference between science and magic and religion? Aren't they all just applying technology, innovation to overcome the constraints of nature? So it's a really interesting question, one we could dive into more, but for now I just want you to be thinking about this, about how we sort of say, those guys are cool, but this aspect of them is not cool. Like, how do we make that distinguish, that generalization? One more thing I want you to ask, I want to ask a question about, because this is going to come up a little bit later. Should humans adapt to nature or adapt nature to themselves? It's a tricky question to ask, and why. So I just want you to think about that. Should we blend in with the nature around us? Like, take Phoenix, for example. Phoenix, Arizona. Oh my gosh. You ever been to Phoenix, Arizona? If you've ever been in the summertime, it is unpleasant. So what do? You build a house and you put air conditioning in it. So now you have adapted nature to themselves. So I don't know if I'm exactly saying this correctly here, but the question becomes, here's another one. Some of you guys have been to San Diego. San Diego, if there weren't people here, it'd be pretty blah. I know the ocean still be pretty, but you wouldn't have a lot of green. There wouldn't be palm trees and things like that. It'd be just sort of grassy, dunes and things like that. So when human beings have come here to San Diego, we basically transformed it into this paradise that really is something we have to keep up. We have to use a lot of water to do, because there's not that water here. Is that a good idea or is that a bad idea? This is an interesting question to ask as we move forward. Okay, I'm rambling now. What I'd like you guys to do is I'd like you to go and do that assignment. I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I think the assignment is you're just typing it directly into Canvas. It's not like write it on a piece of paper and then submit that paper. So just type it into Canvas, and that's it. And I will have a great weekend. I'll see you guys on Monday. Don't forget you have your reflection due by class on Monday, so get that done this weekend. And other than that, have a great weekend. See ya.